Good morning, everybody. We've got Dr. Vicki here. We're going to be talking about eclipses and spring and uh, personal, or generic eclipse information as well as political information. How's everybody doing? Survived St. Patty's Day?
Barely.
And for those that didn't see it, Dr. Vicki posted pictures of her Irish soda bread and it looked fabulous. We were just chit chatting about that. She's looking for some charts that we're going to be sharing hopefully here in a little bit. So
Yeah, hopefully is
if she
the
seems
word.
distracted, it's because she's hunting.
All right. Let's just do this. I think
Thank you, Sharon and Lucky Girl, Sharon Sipe and Lucky Girl for sharing links to Dr. Vicki and for all of us.
okay. So what I think the first thing I'll share with you, Lynn, is Jen, is the actual eclipse. So let me.
We have two eclipses we're going to be talking about this morning. There's a lunar eclipse March 25th, and then a solar eclipse, which I just ordered my glasses so that I can watch it because I'm in a prime area for it in April. Illinois is supposed to be on the good viewing path as long as we have a clear day and not a rainy day.
Okay. All right. We can chit chat maybe about just some general stuff, and then I put a chart up. Do you see that, Jen? Did I do it right?
Lunar eclipse.
Oh, there it is. I'm jumping around on my screen. I apologies to for my technical know how, as they say, or as I say. Yeah, so we have two eclipses coming up. Um, Eclipses can only happen where the nodes of the moon are in a chart, and the nodes of the moon indicate the direction of our evolution, what we're being asked to move toward. And the south node gives us an indication of where we are, and the north node gives us an indication of where we need to go. And the north node right now is in Aries, which Jenlin can attest to, is making her very, very busy.
Me and all my planets in Aries, and now we got the North Node in Aries too. Yay!
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is the time for you, Jen, to take center stage. And there you go.
Mercury moved into Aries, and my Mercury's already in Aries, so I'm getting that double whammy.
Yes, yes. And of course we have Chiron now in Aries and on the North Node. Um, Let me just point that out while we're looking at this. So here are the nodes, and we can see that here's the South Node. Now this is actually for where I live in Wareham. It's not that much different for the United States. You want to see when you're looking at a chart, you want to see how it's affecting where you live, and then you can see how it's affecting the country you're in by putting the capital of the country in the location. That's how you determine how it's affecting. We're not that far from Washington D.C., so
I
it's
was
not
gonna
a
say
problem.
Washington D.C. and Philly. I mean Philly, where they signed the Constitution, right? So East
Right.
Coast.
Exactly, East Coast. And we can see that here's the North Node. The North Node looks like a pair of headphones, and the South Node looks like a lucky horseshoe. And we can see that the moon is near the South Node and the sun is near the North Node. And that's how we know when the sun and the moon are near the nodes like this, we know that this is eclipse season. And there's always two eclipse seasons. There's what we would call a North Node eclipse season, which is asking us to move into an unknown future. And then there's a South Node eclipse season where we're being asked to let go and to release through the South Node. And so the South Node is in Libra. And so a lot of the things that we would release would be a relationship or a relationship to something. And then the North Node asks us to sort of bravely go where no one has gone before. And we have Chiron there, which is a little bit um, interesting. And this is the lunar node. This is the full moon, and then the new moon, the one on the 8th, is actually the one that's going to go across the United States, right? And it's also on the United States Chiron. We are having in the United States, we're having a Chiron return, and that happens every 52 years. And this one that we're having um, is the fifth one because we're about 250 years old as a country. And so every 52 years, we have this Chiron return. And in the United States chart, and if I could, I think I'm going to share that, Jen, if that's okay.
Okay.
I just have to find it. That's all.
Yeah, it's interesting. Chiron, the wounded healer, right? So if the last time it was here was 50 years ago, it was in the 70s.
Yes, yes, yes. And of
So,
course, in the 70s, we were dealing with, we were at the end of Vietnam.
right.
Chiron in Aries is around, is Aries is the warrior, right? And so, and aggressiveness and guns, but it's also around identity and the freedom to be who you are,
And,
right?
and the leader, that's when Nixon had to step down and resign. The leader of our country,
Right.
Aries
So
needs to
there's
be.
right, what is he free to do, right? So that's a question we may ask ourselves. What is the leader free to do? Love,
Chiron's very feminine, though, right? Like a lot of feminine energy with it.
not no, not really. Chiron was a great healer. He was a what do you call those, centaur. He had the bottom of the bottom of his body was a horse, and the top was a man, and it's symbolic of our ability to overcome our baser, our lower nature. And Chiron was sort of a demigod. I think they were called demigods. His father was Zeus, and his mother, I was a nymph, I believe. And when so of course, as always with um, these stories, Zeus ravished her, which means, what that means, right? We don't have to say the word necessarily. Um, and so when and I think there's this. She tried to change herself into a horse and to get away from him, but he ravished her anyway. I think that's how the theme goes. And so when Chiron was born, he was um, um, he was born half man and half horse, and she was so horrified by the look of him that she changed herself into a linden tree. And so one of the wounds, with the deepest wound of Chiron, is abandonment. And so we have this sense of when Chiron gets activated, there's a sense of abandonment that comes up. And depending on what sign it's in, depends on sort of how that expresses itself. And so he was wounded from the get go. And then he actually became a very famous teacher and healer. He was the teacher of Achilles and Hercules. And he was a centaur, and there were other centaurs, but none of them had reached his status. They were all kind of ruffians. And so there was a party, and somebody brought out the wine, and they couldn't like really drink. There's those people who have one sip and then they're like a whole nother person, right? So there was this big melee, and in the process of the melee, um, Chiron was scratched by a poison arrow because he was an immortal, because his father was immortal. Um, he couldn't die from it, and so all he could do was suffer the pain, and he couldn't heal it. So Chiron is also the symbol of the healer, heal thyself, or the wounds that we cannot heal. And the only way that he was sort of let out of that pain was to lose his immortality and be allowed to pass, and and then of course be reborn, um I guess. But
I
there is
never understood why they called him the wounded healer. Now I get it.
yeah, so he had a wound that he could not heal. And as somebody who has a prominent Chiron in my chart, and most healers do, most healers have a pretty prominent Chiron. um, there is this sense of your what you do in your attempt to heal yourself. You actually are healing other people in that process. So for me, like, one of my major wounds is one of abandonment and also of identity. And so one of the things that I like to bring forth in people's charts or when we're looking at things is that to try to give them a sense of who they are, like what's their potential, who are they really. And a lot of times people know who they are, but nobody ever reflects it back to them. So when you get a reading, you're like, wow, that is who I am. And sometimes it's the first time people recognize you for it in a way. So so as a healer, that's what I'm attempting to heal. Thank you, Michael.
I think it's interesting, as a healer, and when I teach healing energy work, I always tell people, work on yourself first before you work on someone else. But I find things that I've healed in myself, I attract people in personal readings that have similar traumas, and I start them on that healing journey or help them with that healing journey. Um,
Right,
it, it,
right. And
it's the healer that's healed themselves then can help other people to heal.
that's right. That's right. And that's the point. I mean, it's resonance, right? We all sort of come together on the same vibe. And when you have a willingness to share your heart like you do and like I do, and it's not that easy to share your wounds. It's not that easy to open up and be vulnerable in front of somebody. But it's necessary. And I think that's one of the things that as a healer, you have to be willing to go there. And it's often a very painful place, and so not everybody is cut out, I guess, to be one. But yeah, so as the United States, we're having this. It's the same one. I haven't changed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, I'm sorry. Which one was it? Show me
That
again.
was the
I
United
apologize.
States chart.
Okay. The United States and the total eclipse. Is this the new moon? Hold on, let me see. What do I have here? It's really tiny to see, so let me see.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a good.
hold on, let me see. This is okay. This is the
This is
one.
the
Okay, this is a
25th.
good one. This is the one yeah. Let's take a look at this one, if we could, on the United States chart. So this is the U.S. chart, the Sibley chart, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1776. And of course, it is just one of the charts you can use for America because this was our Declaration of Independence, right? This is when we declared ourselves um, um, independent from, right, from Great Britain. And of course, independence is Aries, right? Like, this is who I am. I want to be my own thing. Aries needs freedom, and Aries doesn't like to have constraint, and I think Jen can probably
Yes, it's a get out of the way.
attest to that, right?
Be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Because if you're a part of the problem, you get knocked over.
Right, right. So when we look at this chart, here's the Chiron of the United States. Here's this is the eclipse. This is the one on the 8th. This is the one that goes right across, I think, from Texas up to Maine. I think it goes in
Mhm.
that direction. And I just saw something on the news that Texas, there are towns in Texas that are warning people of like almost Armageddon. There won't be food because all these people are coming down. And then I also believe, aren't there people coming from the different states? They're sending these governors from like North Dakota or South Dakota. Do you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
Jen?
North Dakota was talking about sending like some of their National Guard or something to help it,
Right, and
like it's going to be Armageddon in Texas.
right, which I mean, it's a hot place, so it's possible. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't if I was going to do the eclipse, I wouldn't go to Texas for it. Let's put it
Come to
that.
Illinois. We're a blue state.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because this eclipse goes across the country, and we had that eclipse in 2017, the one that they told Trump, "Don't look up," and he's like this, looking up,
Go look.
right? Don't look, and he's like, "Oh, look," you know. So, and at that time, that eclipse, I believe, was on his chart, and you know, some of us more hopeful were hoping that it would be the end of him, but it ended up being just the beginning. And one of the things that they said the eclipse going through the country would split the country in two, which it has. So now we have another eclipse coming
Right.
through. Now, is that gonna split us in four? I mean, it's probably better to be split into four than split into two, right? Because
Yeah.
four is more of a structural energy, I think. Um, and it crosses right at the bottom tip of Illinois, like southern Illinois, where Illinois, and I'm probably saying Illinois wrong. Is it Illinois? How do you?
Illinois. Yeah, you have Missouri, Illinois,
And
Kentucky.
yeah, like right there, and that's where X marks the spot. And I think there's somebody. I think was somebody was saying there's a fault line there. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what exactly happens. But we can see here that Chiron is part of the picture, right? You see, there's the sun and the moon. This is the new moon eclipse. It's on the north node. Here's the United States Chiron. And then a couple of days later, on the 20th, we have our first exact Chiron return of so we have the 8th, right? The 8th of April and the 20th of April. And the 20th of April is always a very hot spot in our chart. The 20th of April was sort of around the time of, and this is also falling around the time of the Boston Marathon. We had the Boston Marathon bombing, and not to say that there's going to be a bombing, because that's not what I want to say. But there was also Columbine happens. I believe it was the 19th. There's of April. April is always a very hot month, and of course it's an Aries month, and it's initiating. And so this is an opportunity. This eclipse really is an opportunity to either act from our wounded self or act to heal our wound, and kind of figure out who we are as a country.
We
What
have the
is our identity?
spring equinox coming in too. Do the equinoxes play into it at all?
Yes, always. The equinoxes, because the first degree of Aries, do you say you have your Mercury there? Where's your
Yeah,
Mercury?
my moon is 1 degree Aries.
Okay, so your moon. So that, and my husband's sun is at 2. I'm feeling you. But that degree of Aries is called a world point. All the first degrees of the cardinal signs, which are the signs that bring in the seasons, are considered world points. And so whenever anything goes over them, it's always it's always quite significant. And I think because we have the Aries energy, we have the eclipse energy, there's just so much energy right now. And I don't know if anybody, I imagine everybody's feeling it. It's almost like everything seems to be happening all at once. You know, that sort of energy.
Yeah,
Um,
between the wars and the fighting and the election and everything, it just feels like on and on and on. Every time you turn on the news, it's like, oh God, not again, not something else.
well, yeah, and it is. It's always going to be something else. Now, I think I also have. Let me see. Uh, I want to see. Is this the eclipse for um, Trump? Okay. Um, I think I have to put it in, right?
Oh, it says Donald Trump.
Oh, okay. See, so this is what.
It changed. Okay, it
Oh, it
changed it.
changed it. Excellent. All right. Good. 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 So this is the lunar eclipse that we're. Oh, this is September. Damn it. Oh, sorry. I was warned, guys. I was warned. Um, all right. And now that I know that this is working like this, let me pull up Trump and this the
Cursing is
eclipse that
allowed.
I'm going to bring up the eclipse. The first one, the one that we're having on the 25th, which was supposed to be when Alvin Bragg did his thing, but now it's not, right?
Moved
Did
off a
that
month. Yeah.
change? Okay, let's
I
see.
think they moved it to April 22nd or something like that.
Right. Okay, so now you can see it says Donald Trump and then partial lunar. Oh, oof, sorry. Wrong one still. But well, okay. Okay, this one keeps coming up. So even though I keep trying to do something else, this is the one in September. Now, I have a sense that he's not even going to make it to November. But this particular eclipse, now this is also a full moon eclipse. This is happening on the 17th of December, and I want to point out that at that time Pluto has moved back into Capricorn. Pluto moves back into Capricorn from September 1st to the 20th of November, which happens to be Joe Biden's birthday, before it moves back into Aquarius, where it stays for 20 years. So it's out of Capricorn finally. But that last period of time that Pluto is in Capricorn is sort of like a period at the end of a very long sentence that started when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008. And so that's when we had the financial collapse. And that doesn't mean we're going to have a financial collapse. It just means that I feel like it's the lessons that we've learned over the last like 15 years or so, however many years it's been since 2008, come to like a final like crescendo. And I think that there's just so many complex things happening at such pivotal times in the United States chart, and and we're facing um, so much. This North Node in Aries with the Chiron return. One of the things I think as a country we have to face is we have to face well, first of all, in the system I use, the shadow of the United States is a 5. It's a 32-5. It's the 6 of wands, but it's also the path of life for the United States. So the United States was really sort of developed in order to heal the wounds around freedom. Who's free? Who really is free? Who deserves to be free? I mean, it truly is an experiment in democracy. And, the United States, we aspire to great things, but for the most part, we fall short. But that's okay because we're all falling short of what we aspire to do. That's part of the lesson. And I
There's
think
our
that,
Six of
right,
Wands. I'm holding up the victory card or the
right, right. And so,
celebration.
exactly. And then, but many years ago, I was reading a tarot book. That's how I learned. I had to read all the books first. And one of them said that the guy on the horse, you can't see his face, and while he's um it's everybody's celebrating, he seems kind of torn about the whole thing because he understood what the blood that was shed, right? So it's about like the activity that we take in order to find freedom and what that costs us. um And then the other thing about the Chiron in the United States chart is that Chiron in Aries is in the fourth house, and the fourth house is the land. And we took the land from the natives. And every time I've been doing some research on our Chiron returns, a lot of the things that got instituted at each Chiron return, like the first one had a lot to do with what we did to the Native Americans. The beginning, it wasn't the Trail of Tears, but it was the start of that. And what happened, like, and so each one, each one of the Chiron returns has a little bit of our past of how we took over lands. The second Chiron return is when the king from Hawaii came to American shores, and we were like, oh, you're a king, you're a king, and then we took their land. So you know what I mean, like there's a lot of that energy with the Chiron returns. And yet there's also energy about the rise of women and the recognition of slavery and abolition started. So there's always like two sides. And it's interesting, we'll see what happens with this particular Chiron return. But I just want to point out this chart. I know I'm kind of jumping around. This is the September chart. And the South Node at that time is on his Neptune. His Neptune in the second house is the lies, right? And we have Mars on his Mercury. Donald Trump has one aspect to Mercury. Mercury is your ability to communicate, and it's a square to Neptune. And when you have Mercury square Neptune, you can be a big fat liar. And so what we're seeing here is Mars on his Mercury and the South Node on his Neptune. This is somehow good, and Neptune is a releasing point. Perhaps we'll understand the lies. Perhaps we'll understand at that point
If,
what that's all about. I'm sorry.
if he had a more positive aspect, he might actually tell some spiritual truths or something, right? But
It's always a choice. And
yeah,
Barack Obama also has Mercury square Neptune, but he chose to use that energy to inspire people, not lie to people. So you can have, just be, if you're thinking of dating somebody and you notice that they have a Mercury square Neptune, and you really like them, you don't have to like kick them out, because it's how you choose to use your
right.
energy.
You have to see which way are they going with this.
Right. And the other thing here in this eclipse, and again, this is a south node eclipse, we see that Jupiter is on his north node. Now people might go, oh no, Jupiter is lucky and the north node is his destiny. Jupiter is also justice. Jupiter is also the courts. So this is, and really, honestly, he is here to sort of show us some things about ourselves, right? He's here to wake America up to some truths that aren't the easiest things to see, or aren't the easiest things to face. And he certainly has helped us face some pretty dire dire things. Now let me
Yeah,
see if I
it's
can.
it's interesting because when I've watched some other astrologers on YouTube, I'm like, they focus so much on the positives of Jupiter, with Trump, and how, oh, he's going to get through all of this, and I'm like, really? There's no way something's going to stick eventually.
Well, maybe I want to say he may not ever see a day in in prison or wherever. I always, the first time I did a thing on Trump, it really was the energy of leaving. I remember the first card, or the first, I don't know if it was the first card that came up, or like the first card that came up as the end of the reading when I asked about Trump for the first time. And I always find when you ask the first time you ask about something with the cards, it kind of sticks with you.
Yeah.
And it was the 8 of Cups. It was like after all of this effort, he's just going to walk away. He's just going to walk away. Now, does he walk away into the because he passes, or does he
Yeah,
walk away? Or does he just go into his own little, sort of
so
like fantasy worlds in his head, and he forever in his head, no matter where he is, he's going to be president, and he's going to be bossing the people who change his diapers around. I remember a couple of years ago, I was either reading something or heard something about the guy from was it Laos, or Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge. Do you remember that? I think it
Yeah,
was Cambodia.
Cambodia. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like 90 and he was in some sort of like probably he was in jail, but it was sort of like an institution, I think. But he was like still alive and it was his like his this weird dream of bringing people back to the if I remember correctly, a more agrarian sort of society. And then it was like a terrible awful thing, and he was still, but he was like in his head, he was still like, thought it was a good idea. So I don't know if when we have people like this, if it's really there for them to um, be held accountable, but to show us all choices and the choices that we've made and how some choices are not so good. And I want to say this about Trump, if I can. In as I see it, when he actually came into, let me see here. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find you again, Jen.
What you're
What?
in showing the September eclipse, do you think the September one's going to hit him harder than um this March 25th one?
Um, yeah, let me pull that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me pull that up. What I would say about this eclipse is and the other thing about eclipses is he's born on an eclipse. And so he was born on a full moon eclipse. It was a blood moon. This one happening now is also a blood moon eclipse. And so was the Speaker of the House, Johnson. He was born on an eclipse as well. And when they're born on an eclipse, and it's a full moon um, lunar eclipse, right? Yeah, full moon lunar eclipse. Usually something uh, changes and shifts for them. So I think that this one coming up is would have been maybe a little bit more powerful had he not had the bragg thing not got changed. But the other person who is born on a full moon eclipse that's in the news is Kate Middleton, or Princess Catherine of
Wow.
Wales, I guess Princess of Wales. I got to say both because people get upset when you don't use the title. And of course, we're Americans. We don't know titles. We don't
We
be
can't
like,
keep them
"Hey, how you
straight.
doing, buddy?" Like from America. So I don't want to offend anybody. She certainly has worked hard to do that, and um, I think maybe she's rethinking if she can her situation there. But that's another story for another day. I heard you and Johnny and Becca talking about that last night a little bit. So I was watching. I was watching. Um, but yeah, so that's another person. And when you're born on and actually, so is Prince William born on an eclipse. So these eclipses are affecting him. So we can um, the uh, the king was coronated on an eclipse. So
I
the king
remember that
actually
like
had
it
to
was a
cross.
weird
Yeah,
astrological time for his
yeah,
coronation.
and they were like, why is don't doesn't he have an astrologer? But maybe that was the plan. Maybe he knew on some level because he's a Scorpio. He's pretty psychic. Maybe he knew he wasn't going to be long, the king. But let me see if I can now go back to
The March.
actually give you what you're asking me to look at. So again, my apologies for being technically confused. Okay, let me see. Is
We
this?
all get technically challenged sometimes.
Oh my God, let me tell you. Okay, hold on. Is this it? Yay, I found it. All right. Now maybe we can work. 39. Okay. Maybe we can look at this eclipse. We're going to, I guess, look at Trump because that's what we were talking about. But
Okay.
okay, where is it? Oh, really? Is you
In
really
the
gonna?
in the top right hand corner, it still says September 17th,
Right. I
2024.
haven't. Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. I'm so sorry.
Okay. It's
Oh shoot. What's this? New moon. Let me see what this is. Okay, so let's look at this. This is Donald Trump. This isn't the I keep saying I want to show the full moon, but I think this is the April 8th eclipse. And what's happening in his chart, you can see this, right? It says Donald Trump
Yes.
and then it says April 8th. Um, the South Node is on his Chiron, interestingly enough. And of course, the North Node is on the United States Chiron, right? The United States Chiron is right here. And so the South Node is generally a release point, but but the question is the energy is on the North Node for this eclipse. And the 8th house is the house of death. It's the house of taxes, and it's the house of other people's money. So there's something about this eclipse, and I think him getting money from whoever, I mean, who's he getting his money from, right?
Right.
There's that question. And so Chiron in Libra is a wound around relationship. First of all, he doesn't know how to relate to other people. So that's a wound, right?
Yeah.
And then the people he does relate to are criminals. I mean, like there's a criminal element here. And so I think that whatever he does now actually may come when around September when we have that full moon. That's kind of what it looks like to me.
I'm kind of betting that E. Jean Carroll's going to have another lawsuit against him and get more money because he keeps defaming her.
Well,
So
he's still right. He came up with the money for the first thing. What was the first thing
right,
he had?
the 80 million for E. Jean Carroll. He hasn't come up. He has until I think the 25th to come up with the 450 million, which is actually going to be over 500 million with the interest and stuff
Okay, let me look.
for the company fraud
Right. So that's the 20. Is that the 25th of
of
March?
March. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's pull that up then. Now I just found. So this is the full moon. So let me put it on his chart. I mean the full moon. All right. All right. Where is here's this one. And I have to do this like little baby, like baby steps. All right, hold on. I got to swap this out. Okay, here we go. So this is the one coming up now. And again, we can see this is the moon of the full moon on his Neptune, his lying, right? There's nothing on the Mercury, but it is squaring the Mercury. And where's the sun? Here's the sun. And again, it's in the 2nd and 8th house. And the South Node is on Chiron. So this is, again, it's like, how's he going to get the money? And I think how he gets the money is going to be maybe when we get the other eclipse in September, the other full moon eclipse, something will be revealed around that, or
Around his criming.
yeah, I think so, because that's the only thing that's getting hit with this one is and it's in his 8th and 2nd house, which is his resources, which of course with Neptune there is all smoke and mirrors, and are created through perhaps relationships, dysfunctional or maybe functional for him, but dysfunctional for us, relationships. We also have something else coming up in oh goodness gracious, May. Uranus and Jupiter are going to come together. That happens like every 12 to 13 years, and it is expansion of consciousness. But of course, Uranus is like blowing things up. And that's going to happen right here, right on his MC, but from the side of the MC where we deal with legal issues. So that's coming up. So
So
that's
that may
another.
be when either SCOTUS makes a ruling on his immunity, possibly, or because the hearing's in April. The hearing's April 9th, I believe, right after the solar eclipse. Um, but
Whew.
they have until July to make a ruling on it till the end of their session, but maybe they'll do a ruling quicker.
Yeah, maybe, and that will be explosive. That is gonna just blow things out of the water. It's square his Mars, and it's certainly going to blow things out of the water for the United States. I mean, whatever happens with that. Um, but ultimately, I think one of the things that we have to really sort of focus on in a way is to try to sort of step back from all the stuff that's happening now, because it's almost like, the closer you are to the explosion, the more damage. So if we can step back, and it's going to happen one way or the other, and so step back from it and see, because I think everything serves on some level, and I think that we need to really, and we're moving into new consciousness. We can't forget that. I mean, Pluto's in Aquarius now. We're moving on to a whole level of of consciousness that we haven't had before, especially with AI and all this other stuff. Our life is about, our life has already changed, but it's about to change even more, and we're going to be in new territory, and we're going to have to figure out how we want to work this, because the world is a very small place, and we can't keep beating each other over the head and expect to survive, and beat the planet over the head and expect to survive. We have to move in to an ability to accept ourselves for who we are, and warts and all, and work on it, fix it.
Nurture ourselves and nurture others around us.
Well, you and I are doing our best, Jen. I mean, you have your healing thing coming up. When is that? Just remind me that date.
June 14th is the first one.
Okay. All right. Are you filled up with that?
Yeah, sold out both events. It's 2 weekends back to back, and
Oh,
we'll probably come back in the fall and do another one in into September and first weekend of October.
yeah,
But
that's
I don't have that up for sale yet on my website.
well, but just let's get, we got to relax. We have the eclipses coming. There's a lot of stuff happening.
I'll get all energized in April when all the planets start moving through April and the eclipses and everything else, and I'll be like, wow, trying to do a
Right,
hundred
right.
things at once.
We should probably, not here, but we could I'll look at your chart for you, and see,
It's
because I
it's
know
a time where I'll probably bite off more than I can chew.
oh, like that's something new. Is that
Yeah,
something
and
new?
then start delegating. Like, okay, you take care of this.
So yeah, so that's I don't know. I mean, even as I'm like going over this with you, even though I wasn't quite prepared, and that was part of the problem, I feel like I'm on like a go-kart that lost its brakes. You know what I mean? Like we're just like,
You're in a Flintstone car. You got to put your own feet down.
I used to always have dreams. I've had so many dreams where I've been behind the wheel of a vehicle that doesn't have brakes. And I'm always like veering and just barely missing catastrophe. But I continue to go. And I had a friend who once told me, she said, I don't know how you live your life. You just live your life by the seat of your pants, and without like no guarantee. Like it's like there's no guarantees. It's just like I just go in a direction. And I'm sure there are many people out there who can. Do you feel that
I,
way,
I make
Jen?
plans a certain way, and I start going there, and it's like I don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but I know I'm going to pull it off.
There you go. That's it. It must be an Aries thing, because although I'm not an Aries, I do have my North Node in the first house. which is the Aries house, along with Uranus and Mars and Pluto and the North Node. So I am really sort of going down the mountain with or without skis, either, sometimes on skis, sometimes on my ass, and sometimes on my face, it seems. But as I go, um, I think that you and I will be those ladies that what is that? Go into the home base with the martini in their hands, and
Yes,
you ever
slide
heard
in with the
that?
martini.
So
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah. Although probably not a martini, probably like a donut for me.
it's
But
funny because
anyway,
I've always been bad about thriving on change. Like I love change. I don't like things to be stagnant. I like things to move forward. And I'll create too much change sometimes. I'm like, stir it all up and just create change. Um and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I need a little downtime to myself. Let me have a spa day or something. I need to like not talk to anybody for 2 days, that kind of energy.
yes, 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 yes. Yeah, it's been kind of, and that's the energy. Like I mean, I'm sure that we're not the only two people who feel like the world is going like this.
Yeah.
Just you have just enough wherewithal to stay on the road practically. And sometimes the road's a super highway. Well, so far it hasn't been a super highway for me. Mostly it's been like dirt roads with ruts in them. Boom,
I
boom,
mean,
boom.
I was laughing with a client the other day. I said, we've been doing these Sunday nights going on 5 years now. And I said, it amazes me. Like at the beginning of the week, I'm always like, are we going to have enough questions for next week? Because we've been doing this so long. And by the end of the week, we've got pages of questions to
Right, it's
read
like, well, I
on.
have
It's
too
like,
many questions. Which
boom,
questions
boom,
do I
boom.
pick?
It's like, all right, which way do we focus in the questions?
Yeah, it's interesting times we're living in for sure. And we all have a stake, I mean, we're very America centric here, but it's hard not to be. It's hard not to be America centric when you're in America. I think
If we
it's,
can back
yep,
up a second, just
yep.
in general with eclipses, I mean, what do eclipses ask us to do? Do they like break down things and in general, what
It's okay if I stop sharing this so we can see
yeah,
each other a little better.
yeah,
Okay.
here I'll
I
take it
see your
down.
beautiful face. You have the best smile, by the way. Anyway, so eclipses are opportunities for us to take leaps of evolutionary leaps, and
If
it's
we're
what
brave enough, right?
well, whether we're brave enough or not, it takes us with us. It's like there's that expression for those. It's something about people who want to evolve go, and people who don't want to evolve get dragged.
Yeah.
It's really it can be a disruptive situation. Now, if you don't have planets around the eclipses, then it's less personal for you. But as we can see, it's pretty personal for Donald Trump. It's and it's definitely personal for the United States. It's going to be personal for you because you have the Aries energy. Um, and so there is, and of course the North Node in Aries is it's almost like, I said this to my husband right after my mother, when my mother was about ready to pass. I said to him, we better. I said you better have, and of course, when you point at somebody, you got like four fingers pointing back at you. So I had to apply it to myself as well. You better have a direction, because there's going to be a time when, and what's been happening is there's been this energy of pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, pulling back, and then there's the let go, and it let goes, and it doesn't. The arrow just sits there for a minute, and then it catches up, and then it goes whoosh, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening to Jen Lin.
I, I hear the whoosh by my ear.
it's happening to, and what I've noticed like even people who have been doing what we've been doing. Like I've actually uh, been on for a long time, but I really came on when when the whole Kavanaugh thing came down, and I had a lot of stuff going on in my life with my mother and being so old and having to take care of her, and then COVID, and then having a business, and then we were all like gasping and just trying to make sense of the craziness. But a lot of the people who have stuck with it seem to really be taking off
Well,
now.
you know what's interesting with that arrow pulling back too? I found a lot of people that I've been doing personal readings for, and a lot because of COVID, because we've been forced inside and hibernating and not getting around our friends as much, and now it's like we're bursting at the seams to get
Yeah,
out there. We're
yeah,
ready, like the flowers in the yard, to spring forth again and just junk. I am ready to be of the world and of the earth again.
yes,
So it's really interesting. Like a lot of people asking, is there a new relationship coming in for me? They're ready for it. So I think that this eclipse, in a way, if it's catapulting us, that people will start to see a lot of change in their own lives.
right, right, and the always
It's
right.
skewy. This is skewy.
Hi, buddy.
You can do anything you want with him. He's
No.
a mess.
I love male cats. There's so much. They're just such love bugs. Like you can like the other day, Charlie was sitting on my table on my where I'm
Like,
sitting right now, and I had to do a reading. So I picked him up and then I stuck my face in his belly and I was going to his belly and he's purring. If I had done that to one of my female cats, I wouldn't have had a face left.
love it.
But he's just like, okay,
Skewy is
mommy.
just like my Artie that passed away before I got the kittens, and the part of the reason I got the kittens, Artie always laid on the back of my sofa. The cushion was always bent down. He was always belly up, all four paws in the air. And Skewy does the same thing on the back of the sofa. He's always belly up.
Yeah.
He's taken on the man spreading role on the sofa.
Well, that's good. I mean, if
Oh,
you're gonna
and
have a man
my
spread
three kittens are all Aries. They were all born April 2nd.
oh, well, you got to tell everybody what's going on at the eclipse with the kittens. My
Yeah, what
goodness.
chat? It's funny because they have different personalities, but they have a gentleness about them that is really unusual for kittens. Like they don't claw my hands or anything. So even though they're Aries warriors, they don't claw me.
Well, you're not a mouse, so luckily, if you put Mickey Mouse ears on, maybe they would see
Yes,
you.
they would claw me.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
it's the
Well,
first time I've had cats that I knew their date of birth. Yeah, like actually know their date of
right,
birth. They
right. Yeah,
were all Aries.
most cats we don't know. My first cat that I had, his name was Josie. He was a boy, but when I got him, they told me he was a girl. And I named him after my grandmother, and then he was a boy when I went to the vet, and they're like, I'm like, oh no. So then my friend said, oh, he's like the outlaw Josie Wales, and he really was. He was a rascal, man. But I did know his birthday. He was born around the well, when I got him, he was too young. I think he was born around the equinox, not the solstice, the summer solstice. So he was a Cancer, and he would suckle on my ear until he was like until he left the planet, and he was like an 18-pound cat hanging off my ear because he would just suckle on me. Oh my god. But yeah, so that he was my first baby. He was special.
Is there anything about Biden and the eclipses that you'd like to call attention to? Or
Sure. Let me just
I know you have a class on Monday, so I don't want to keep you too long. But
actually, yeah, my class is we're I'm between classes. So this Monday, actually don't, but I do have two readings later today, but still have some time. So let me and I'm doing my best to be technically good, but it's not really. It's
I
not
always
really.
say fake it till you make it. So act like you know what you're doing.
Share screen. Well, I kind of do that. Oh, damn it. I'm sorry. I keep doing the same thing over again. All right, let me stop. Let me stop talking. Share screen. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Window. Okay. So let me I'll pull this up. I know we're looking at the same thing again, but then I'll change it to put Joe. Joe Biden. Who, by the way, do you love that man every day more and more? I mean, how could
His
he's
State of the
exactly
Union
the
was
energy.
brilliant. I was
It
applauding.
was
I was jumping up and down. His State of the Union was awesome.
finally. And
And
I mean, he's been pretty
he's
patient with those.
he's
Go ahead.
tired of Trump's rhetoric, and he's finally calling him on it very blatantly, very bluntly, and all the MAGA people. It's like,
You know what?
and in a joking, funny way. Oh, I know you know how to read. Like he's cracking jokes at him and kind of making fun
Right.
of him a little bit. And he needs to do that. He needs to ridicule him a little.
I think even more than that is because he knows who Trump is. Trump is, you know, Trump. But I think even more than that is this is the way that the Republicans. I think that's his big disappointment,
But
honestly.
it's so funny how he's like, I don't need the Nikki Haley voters. I just need MAGA. It's like, you're gonna have less votes than you had the last time, dude. You're not gonna be elected, and he's just in total denial.
So this is can you see this, honey? Joe Biden and the March 25th.
Yes.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure because I can't tell because I have to be on this screen and I can't see you. So if I make funny faces, I'm unaware of that. But so here we have Joe. This is Joe. I want to point out all his Scorpio energy in the 12th house. I also want to point out that Uranus is opposite his Mercury and has been opposite his Mercury. Mercury is your ability to communicate. Uranus is shocking to a certain extent. So there's that. So he kind of shocked people, I think. They think he's like
Little
doddering.
dark Brandon.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, which is what I love. I also want to point out that his Mars is on his south node. And um, when the thing happened in Gaza, in Israel, on the 7th, Saturn was on his south node. Now Mars is there, and it's interesting because he's changing his tune a little bit.
Yeah.
He's putting the onus on Netanyahu, who definitely deserves the onus.
Hmm.
Um, but as far as the eclipse is concerned, the moon is on his Neptune. Neptune rules his south node. He has Mars there. This is a little bit, and I hate to say stuff like this because people panic. I want everybody to panic. This Mars on the south node can be old enemies coming back, right? So this could be Putin. It's just he has to be careful. That's all, and I think we probably all know that. And I think he's got the dogs there, so they're not gonna make anybody screw with him. I almost said a bad word. Um, but we can see that he has Neptune in Libra in the 10th house, and the 10th house is the house of the president, and he is the president. And so how he comes across as is compassionate and a conciliator, right? The Libra energy is about finding balance, and there's the moon there. So that's going to be highlighted, along with perhaps his the energy of bringing more humanitarian aid and things like that to the situation in the Middle East, and hopefully also in the Ukraine, because that definitely needs to happen. Now let's look at the other note, the other if I could, I'm going to look at the other, the one on the 8th and see how that affects him. All right, let me find
It's
you.
interesting because he's tried so hard to unify our country, but there's so many MAGA people that are off the deep end that I think he finally woke up and realized I can't reach everybody. But yeah, I can reach the independents. I can
Well,
reach the true conservatives that aren't
right.
crazy,
That aren't
that,
crazy.
that don't want a fascist dictator, you know.
Okay, so here's Joe again, and this is the April 8th one. It is in his fifth house. There could be something around his son that comes up. Not son like S-O-N, Hunter. But it's not touching anything really exactly in his chart. You can see his moon is at 0 of Taurus, and there's nothing really close enough to that to be affecting it. So I think as I look at it, and again, I just want to say this: I'm by no means an expert in eclipses. I think some of the best astrologers out there even are challenged with eclipses, because um, eclipses work like Uranus. You don't really know what to expect, but it looks like the the full moon, the one that's happening on the 25th, is activating his chart more than this one, the one on the 8th, as far as I can tell. So, I mean, there's always possibility. If there's people out there who are experts in eclipses, please feel free to to disagree.
But
But
it's
we do
interesting
have,
because, like Hunter, they tried to subpoena him to come in for a public hearing now, which is what Hunter wanted to do all along. So he went in, he testified behind doors. Now they want to do a public hearing, and Hunter's like, "When you get Ivanka and Jared in, I'll come." You know, it's really interesting. So I think Hunter is playing it well, and that's keeping it a lot off of Joe. You know, he's not having to get in, and he's not having to say anything about Hunter.
right, right. I just do want to point out that Uranus is opposite his Mercury, though. Uranus is opposite his Mercury. And then, as I said, Jupiter is going to come make a conjunction at 20, I think it's 23 degrees, 22 or 23 degrees. And that's happening in May. May, right before Jupiter moves into, Jupiter's actually changing signs in May. It's going to go into Gemini. Jupiter's going to go into Gemini. It's been in Taurus for about a year. Um, but that's activates his Mercury here. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, these eclipses are definitely, I almost feel like while they affect, but here, let me just, if I can, let me just share one more thing here, because um, I don't know if I shared this already, but I will share it again. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. We've been talking about a lot of things, so I
We've jumped around a little.
we jumped around, and I'm getting kind of old, so jumping around is not as easy as it used to be. Um, all right. I think this is it. Is this it? Let's see.
Yes.
Oh, this is the one. This is the October eclipse. Now, this is the October eclipse for the US. We see Chiron on Chiron. We see Jupiter on Mars. All right. Jupiter's expansion. Mars can be uh, one of the things that Trump is really good at is separating us, because his sun and his Uranus and his North Node sit on Mars. Now we have Jupiter there. And we have, this is a new moon. This is the new moon eclipse, and that's happening on October 2nd. I didn't mean to pull this up, but here it is. It's showing itself. And it's actually on the Saturn of the United States. And Saturn in the 10th house is the rule of law, but it's also the president here, um, which makes me think that the president that was that sitting is the president that's going to win. Like that, what that looks like to me. Hopefully, we do have Mars on the sun, the United States sun. So there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of energy.
A lot of October surprises.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Jupiter on Mars. They keep talking about civil war, and didn't he just say something about a bloodbath if he doesn't get in? There could be some trouble with this, just because uh, we're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? It's a troubled time. As we have Pluto back in Capricorn, of course, the United States has. So we can see the Pluto return here. We can see the Chiron return here. We can see Jupiter on our Mars, how we take action, and then we have Mars on our Sun. This is just it's a very volatile time, and to say what exactly going to happen, I can't say. I wouldn't. I personally don't feel comfortable saying what's going to happen, just that something's going to happen. And one of the things that I think is most important is to understand that where you put your energy and where you put your focus is the world that you create. And so, what do we want to create? Do we want a civil war? Or do we want to? All that energy could be used to bring us together as easily as we could use that energy to tear us apart, right? So my feeling is, why are we wasting our time tearing each other up when we know what's ahead of us, and not just in our own country, but in the world. I mean, if we really want to be a beacon of justice and fairness and Aquarian energy, then we're going to have to start acting like it, and stop shooting ourselves in the foot, or
It's
shooting.
interesting because I always say, like, to as individuals, be the change you want to see, but it's the same of a country too. Be the change you want to see in the world.
That's right.
And we've never fully, even though we've had so much power, we've never fully embraced that and show the world by example.
I think we looked at this, right? We do have the south node on Saturn here. This is the April eclipse. I think this is what I wanted to look at, and the Chiron return. Yeah, we looked at this. Okay, so I'm good. I'm good with that.
It's gonna
I hope
be
this. I hope this
it's
wasn't.
gonna be it's going to be crazy, like one thing after the other from now through the elections, and even after the election, because all the Republicans are going to be like, "Oh, it's fake, it's rigged, it's blah blah blah." They're going to say all the things they've said every time they lose,
Right,
and
right. Yeah,
and
it's
we'll be the change we want to see and say, "No, our elections are fair."
right. Well, as far as the Chiron return energy, we have two Chiron returns in 2024, and then the last one in 2025. And I can tell you the date on that because I do have something up for that. Let me see. I'll tell you when that is. Is this it? So, oh, by the way, this is interesting. The Sabian symbol for 21 degrees of Aries, where the United States has its Chiron return, is a pugilist enters the ring. So, all right, great. So the last Chiron return happens on February 18th of 2025, and that I think will be when we start to actually attend to what needs to be attended to.
And heal from what happened
Yeah, just like get the work.
January 6th and all of that.
I really think there's going to be a blue wave, but there's going to be, we've waited so long. We're just like, please, like we make progress, and then everything's held back, and I think it's going to be sweet. It's not going to be easy. I think the Republicans going to take a long time for them to get back in to power, and that's okay. They deserve it. In fact, I was looking at the Chiron returns again, and I think it was the second Chiron return. it was said this was the first time that the Democrats got into power, or like won, like it wasn't the, I don't think it was election, it was either the Senate or the House for the first time in, like, I don't know how many years it had been, because it was the Civil War was, the Republicans took power, right? In a way, with Lincoln, and they sort of moved us forward. And now it's the Republicans have fallen or will be falling, and the Democrats take power. But ultimately, it's about a balance between that. If we really want, um, and of course, really the true problem, our true problem, is money in politics.
Yeah.
Because as soon as there's money, we don't count.
Citizens United and the lobbyists, like it all needs to go.
It all needs to go. I mean, we had the fine, what was it, Feinstein McCain thing that,
Yeah.
like, was there, and then it was gone. They're like, yes, and then they're like, nope. And a lot of that has to do with I think also the Supreme Court is going to change. The Supreme Court, the Constitution chart, which is when the Supreme Court was sort of instituted, um, has Pluto in Aquarius. And so, and that's, I think it's at like 14 of Aquarius. So it's going to take probably 10 years before we can get that settled. But, you know,
We should maybe take a.
I can't even decide what's going to happen in a week. Forget about 10 years from now.
They just keep tearing things down in the Republican Party. It's like, okay, are you going to rename it MAGA? I mean, because you're forgetting about all the conservatives that have nowhere to go now but Democrat.
Well, I think that I think MAGA's, I think once, honestly, I think once Trump is done, which is short, and Putin,
Yeah.
he'll be out soon. Then things will sort of settle, and I think that we'll find a more of a balance. And then the Republicans have to decide, because really the Republicans have been doing nothing but obstructing since Clinton.
Yeah, they haven't had a platform in 12 years other than to try to destroy things and get as many judges out there as they can. They haven't had a platform they've posted on their website since before Trump.
And before that, George, we had little Bush, right? And
Yeah.
he came in with all this money, all this opportunity, all this, and then we wasted. Well, I don't know if we wait. I guess I would think we wasted it. But again, you have to back up. You have to back up from it. There's a purpose to everything, and I think um, it's important for our mental health to not get too obsessed with any of it, honestly, because it will blow up in our face, and we can't afford that, really.
Yeah, Summer's asking, does the Republican Party have a birth date for a chart? And yes, parties, they have a not ratification. What do they call it? Just like a
Yes,
corporation. A
yes, they
corporation can
do.
have a chart.
Yes, they have a chart, and they just had, when Trump became president, they were having their second Uranus return. So people have their Uranus return at 84. And so we can only have one Uranus return per lifetime, but an institution or a state. So they went totally Uranus, and it's very interesting. On my channel, I have a couple of videos. One of them is "The Devil is in the Details: The Making of the Monster That Is Trump." And there's a series I do, him and his dad, him and Cohn, him and Bannon, and him and the Republican Party. And the Republican Party's Mars is conjunct his Pluto. So him becoming a Republican gave him a lot of power. Pluto is about death and rebirth. And so he, as Lindsey Graham said, and if anybody's watched Lindsey Graham lately, if you can even stand it, I don't know how he's holding himself together.
He's quite psychic when he said he'll destroy us, and he has.
Right. Well, he will, but it was time for them to be reborn. It was time for them to be reborn. So I do think that And then, of course, I think, the Cheney, Liz Cheney, while she's been very hopeful, she has to change too. She can't be the same Liz Cheney she was, voting 90% with Trump because it was just what he was doing and it was her conservative view. I mean, she's been hopefully exposed to enough Democrats to realize that we're not the enemy and that we're here to work together. Um, we'll see. We'll
And
see.
that they need to be in touch with their constituents more to understand what the masses want, because they're supposed to represent, the at least in
At,
theory
at
the
least to
majority.
at least to serve them. At
Yeah,
least to serve them and not have it just be that the Democrats are a bunch of devils.
I mean, Trump it totally like puts aside, like, if you're not MAGA, you're just a horrible person, and he leaves out 55-60% of the country,
Right, but the Republicans did
or
that.
actually 70%, because only about 30% is MAGA.
Yeah, well, we're in a democracy and we have to be able to agree to disagree and still work together. Otherwise it doesn't work. And we need an educated populace, and the Republicans have been attacking um, education for 40 years. I mean, really, the beginning. I mean, certainly the first, we'll say, quote unquote, criminal that I knew about was um, um, Nixon, right? I mean, I was like, I was like 11. He got kicked out or something like that. But Reagan was no, they talk about Reagan. They're always, he was. I used to run around and tell people that I was 19 at the time. Reagan is like it's the beginning of the end. I was like freaking Chicken Little, and my no everybody because I was 19. What did I know? Everybody's like pat me on the head saying, "Oh, he's good, he's good, he's good," and I'm like, "No, he's not. You don't understand. It's because I saw it coming. Like I don't know how I knew, but I knew." And so my husband calls me by my Indian name, Sky is Falling, instead of Chicken Little. So.
It still amazes me that Reagan wasn't impeached for the Iran Contra affair. I mean,
Well, he had a very see, Neptune is a very powerful force in the United States chart, and it's the American dream, but it can be also the American delusion, or they can talk us into anything. You know what I mean? But we're hopefully things are clearing up. We still need the dream, but the dream needs to be one of equality and not just
quality
owning
and
a
unity.
house, not just owning a house and having the kids. And it's not about what you have, it's who you are and what you do with who you are and what you do with what you have. And I think that we're a very prosperous country. It's time for us to share with each other first, right? With each other.
Time for the billionaires to definitely share a little bit. I can't wait
Well, well, that's
till that
that's
time when we take
that's
over
yeah, that's Aquarius. That has. There's no way they're not going to. They can't. It can't stay that way. It's just
to
not.
redo the tax laws. Once we get the House back, is like get get that money, because they could cut our taxes. If they got more money from the wealthy.
Well, and the whole idea of the Aquarian age is things are going to even out, and so
Yeah.
and people are going to not stand for it. People are not going to stand for it. They are just they're like, nope, this is what the people want, and you can see it all over the world. It's just that this is like the gasp of the power over patriarchal stuff, and we need, if we want to survive, if we want to continue on this path, we certainly can, but it's only going to help 1% or 1%. What about the rest of us, right?
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting if we do another talk here in a few weeks. I love getting together with you and looking at all this, maybe looking at the Republicans chart a little bit in
Yeah,
depth,
we can do that.
and take a
Yeah.
peek. And anybody else that has other suggestions they'd like to see, leave it in the comments below the video. Even if you're watching later, I'll watch those and see other suggestions for astrology
And I
videos.
promise next time I'll be more organized.
I thought you did pretty well.
Did you? Oh, whew. I'm like having palpitations here.
Well, we're not sharing screens that often, so when you go to do it, it's like, wait, how did I do this?
Right, right. Well, when I do like classes and stuff, I use Zoom, and I've mastered Zoom, and even then, my students will tell you, not always did she master Zoom, but I try my due diligence. I like the flow. I like to keep it in the flow, and sometimes my brain just goes, nope, nope, you don't remember how to do that. But yeah, I would love to come back. I always love spending time with you, Jen, and
Lucky Girl's posting the link to your website. So if you want to look at classes or readings and services,
right,
if you're
right. Yeah, let
watching
me
this
just
later,
yeah,
open up the live chat and you'll see the links.
if I could, I'll just say that I'm after I was on Susan Lynn's channel, I had this inundation of people. So if you uh, thank you to everybody who is now subscribed and I've had readings with. I'm meeting the most, as you know, you meet the most fascinating people with the most fascinating stories, and I'm really grateful for that. So my website is still a little bit rough. So while you're looking at that, but I am going to be doing another Kabbalah introduction to Kabbalah. That's going to happen in May. I don't have a date yet set, but I'll make an announcement and the like. But so that is going to happen, and I have continuing astrology classes going on. So any new stuff, I'll make an announcement, and Jem will let you know.
Yeah. She does come on to Petty Boots occasionally too.
I
We always
almost
enjoy
I
that.
almost did. I almost asked to come on last night.
You want to come on next Sunday? We're on back on my channel next week.
On Becca's channel or yours?
Mine.
On yours? Yeah. That'd be fun. I think that would
Okay.
be fun.
Dr.
I
Vicki on the Petty Boots Sunday night on my channel, 8 Eastern,
holding,
7 Central.
holding me to it. Well, good. I won't have like Monday with you, which is I love having Monday with you, but like I hopefully I'll have. It'll be good. I'm gonna just stop talking right now.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you everyone for watching. And we will see you Sunday night. I'll see you Sunday night. Dr. Vicki sees you almost every day. You do astrology daily.
Yes, in the
It,
morning.
catch this morning's video. Charlie was so funny. Her cat. Bye, everybody.
Bye.